So I make no promises that I'm going to have a regular time each day with regard to the morning video. While on vacation, things are, a little this, a little that. So maybe a little earlier today than yesterday, but tomorrow it might be earlier or later. No promises. All right. So, in fact, tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, I think will probably be the part three of the Cern Basher series on his bio. But let's talk about the market. So far, I would say that the markets are very, very flat today. Can't really make up their mind how they feel about what's going to happen with the China tariffs, and maybe not even that interested in what happened with Great Britain in terms of the tariffs there, the UK. The tariffs seem to be smart. I saw some headlines today with regard to it on X where people were a little confused by, well, how come, under these tariffs, the US prices are going to go up on British goods and the Brits are going to pay less for US goods. Okay, folks, for those of you who are confused, that's kind of the whole idea. To the extent that British products come into the United States and cost a little bit more, it helps domestic manufacturers. To the extent that the Brits pay a little less for US goods, it helps US manufacturers. If that's confusing to you, let me know in the comments. It was confusing to at least one person. In the meantime, if you want some real confusion this morning, that would be the Tesla stock price going up dramatically. AJ reported earlier that I was really up and around, that Ford and GM and Rivian and Lucid were all up also, but apparently the Ford and GM thing didn't last long enough because when I got up, Ford and GM were already down. So why were all five of those up this morning? I mean, nicely, 7%, 8%, then settled down to around 5%, except Ford and GM down to less than zero. So I started trying to figure that out. I mean, I asked Grok, I said, what's going on? Why would Rivian, Lucid, and Tesla all three be up this morning? I could explain maybe Tesla in terms of the beginnings of FOMO with regard to Robotaxi in, at some point, you're going to start seeing these days. I believe it's going to happen. You're going to be seeing these days of Tesla going up 4, 5, 6% at a time, because of that FOMO. Because we've got to get that 100 points before the end of the month for Randy to be right. So, so we got to get a $100 worth just on FOMO, and then another $100 based on the overall macro as the risk on keeps going up and up with regard to the general stock market. So both of those things have to happen if I'm going to hit my 488, and I still think it's possible. If not on May 30th, which I think is a Friday. I looked that up at one point. I might be wrong on that. Anyway, let's see. Today is the 9th. And if you add 21, yeah, that would be the 30th. Okay, so Friday's the 30th. If we might hit the 488 on May 30th, and it might happen a little before, it might happen a little after, it might be a week after or 2 weeks after, as the Robotaxi thing actually rolls out, and also as Model Q might be revealed sometime in that window. All right, so all that's kind of coming up, but that doesn't explain Rivian and Lucid being up today also, unless it's unrelated, but that just seems weird. And people are like, well, Randy, just more buyers than sellers, except that I don't buy that. I don't buy that analysis when you see something like these stocks outside the market rallying in a way and rallying together in a way, and they came down at the same time. So there's something going on, and what's weird is you would typically think you could figure it out because you don't get that kind of movement unless a bunch of folks have made the movement at the same time. So there's got to be a reason. Anyway, it's driving me nuts. I asked Grok. Grok didn't know. I've looked at 100 different headlines. None of the headlines knew. I've asked you guys on X, or some of you who are also following me on X, I asked on X, and nobody had anything close to a good reason. So for now, we'll just say, okay, I'm just happy to have it up and going in the right direction. We were over 300 for a little while, and it looks like maybe by the end of the day, we might be at around 300 or just a little plus or minus. All right, so what else we got here? We've got India tariffs dropping. So here's one of the possibilities. India tariffs dropping, but is Rivian and Lucid thinking about selling in India? I don't know. But if India tariffs drop, that's going to help Tesla. Tesla's really obviously making an effort to get into India. Is it worth 4 or 5%? Yeah. China trade talks. Again, China trade talks, right now both sides are talking tough because that's what you have to do when you go into your trade talks. My understanding from reading some articles this morning is that the China economy it's really a horror show is what it is. And so I would think China is kind of back on its, it's going to be under pressure to make a good deal with the United States. And again, no good negotiator, and I know Trump is a master negotiator, and he's got Bessent going in, who's a master negotiator. No good negotiator leaves the table with a great deal for themselves and making the other person feel defeated. It's just not wise. Doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. Okay, so that's not going to happen. So we'll see what happens over the weekend, but we got that as very big news. I think China, the tension going out of the situation with China will be a plus for Tesla. If China comes out of it feeling like they got a good deal, or if it's looking better and better for China, and it might help China's economy, that would be a good deal for Tesla, but not for Rivian or Lucid. Anyway, so that's not it. It's cool, but it's not it. We got this from Nick Cruz Patain. He says the second largest food distribution company in the United States, US Foods, has taken delivery of their first Tesla Semi. The trailer they're using is also refrigerated. The Semi includes a 25 kilowatt ePTO system that powers any load, such as a refrigerated trailer. Well, that's really good news for Tesla. I think that's a very positive thing for Tesla, but it doesn't explain Lucid or Rivian. Then we've got this from the Dalty Brewer. Breaking, Steak and Shake has announced they would like to start using Tesla robotaxis for food delivery. Well, now that's a really, really good news for Tesla, but not for Rivian or Lucid. The Dalty Brewer goes on to say, he says, it has begun. So to the extent that Steak and Shake sees an opportunity to use Tesla robotaxis as delivery vehicles, then I guess every single pizza place in the country, et cetera, would also see that possibility. The question we, of course, all have is how does that work in terms of end to end? And I've put this up a long, long time ago. Maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't. Is I think what happens is that the Tesla vehicle leaves the pizza place or leaves Steak and Shake with the order in the frunk, maybe in the front trunk. Maybe there's even a heating capability in that frunk. It could be in the trunk too, but I think it's going to be smarter to put it in the frunk with some kind of a heating thing. And then once the car leaves, just like any vehicle like this, right on the app, you can see that it's coming. Okay, you know when it gets to your front door. It can even call you. It could actually, text you and say, I'm in front of the house or in front of your apartment building or whatever. You go down and because you have your phone with you, the phone will be the thing that unlatches the front. You take your product out, you go upstairs and you're done, or go back to your place and you're done. So I think that's how it could work. I think it would be incredible. And it's a massive, massive, massive TAM. So that could really, really help Tesla. But Rivian and Lucid don't have self-driving cars, so how's it supposed to help them? So I still haven't figured it out. So Herbert Ong has this morning. He says, ARC's Cathie Wood said I guess yesterday maybe, quote, our target in 5 years or 2030 is 2,600. Our confidence in that number has gone up now that Tesla is commercializing robotaxis in June. Again, that would be a good reason. Cathie Wood saying that might cause some of the retail buyers, maybe even some of the institutionals to be more interested in Tesla. Although, Cathie Wood's reputation right now maybe wouldn't cause institutional buyers to do much. But anyway, it's really good for Tesla. This really makes sense that Tesla will be up today. So these are all good news things for Tesla, don't you think? John CHR and then 08117285. I think I've quoted him before. He needs a better handle. As of today, I am now at 10,458 miles since my last critical intervention on Tesla FSD 13.2.8, which was on February 25th in rural Ainsworth, Texas. So February until May, basically 3 months, March, April. Yeah, 3 months, 10,000 miles, hasn't had an intervention, hasn't had a safety intervention, a critical intervention in all that time. Now, why is it important that he's reporting this? Well, he's about to go clean out the back seat of his car and get ready for another night, early morning of Uber. So I don't know if this whole 10,000 miles has been by Uber, but that's what he does. He's been doing Uber. And he says, just for your information, in case you didn't know, you can run Robotaxi from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. and then shut it down for the rest of the day and still support most of the Tesla nerd future cash flow models out there. So he's working from 10 till 4 in the morning and able to make a living doing that. I mean, heck of a deal. That's fantastic. This is Randy Kirk. Hit like, subscribe, and notify if this is the only place this morning that you found any significant news about Tesla. This morning when I got up and I started looking around for news, I'm like, man, it's another one of those slow news days. But you see, I'm the guy who digs deep. I dig and I dig and I dig until I find the news that's useful, valuable, that actually impacts the stock, that actually should impact your critical analysis of how to play the stock, etc. That doesn't mean that I understand why the stock is up this morning. I just, again, I think it's FOMO. I think it's the beginning of FOMO, but that wouldn't explain Lucid or Rivian. So who knows? Okay. So like, subscribe, notify, all that jazz. Join Patreon. I did have another person, I forgot to write down the name, join Patreon the other day. So come on, guys. I mean, really, seriously. I mean, all these other YouTube guys have lots of Patreon followers. What's wrong with my crowd? I mean, I love you guys. I appreciate that you're following. I appreciate that my numbers are going. My subscribers are up. My numbers are up. Everything's up. But it would be helpful to have a little Patreon. I know sitting here in Hawaii right now, you're probably going, Randy, you don't need the money. No, I don't need the money. I really don't. I don't. Let's be honest. Either does Dylan. Absolutely, there's no way that any of these guys need the money. And none of the people that I know that are doing YouTube videos need the money. 100%. Most of them are way richer than I am. But you're paying them because they're doing a good job. And I feel like I'm doing a good job. Okay. Real Donald Trump says this morning. The problem with even a tiny tax increase for the rich. Okay, so the Republicans are talking about potentially doing some kind of a tax increase for the very, very wealthy. The most recent one is to go up a couple of points on those making more than 2.5 million per year. Okay, not a million per year. Now it's 2.5 million a year. And the reason for that is to help them balance the budget going into this tax thing, or balance the reconciliation bill. I think it has to be balanced. Okay. Yeah, I think that's what it has to be. So I should go back and study that a little deeper, but I think that's correct. Anyway, he says the problem with even a tiny tax increase for the rich, which I and all others would generously accept in order to help the lower and middle income workers, is that the radical left Democrat lunatics would go around screaming, "Read my lips." They would be complaining that somehow Trump said he wouldn't raise taxes on the rich or raise taxes at all. Well, he says, this is, of course, the fabled quote by George Bush the elder, and people say it cost him the election. He says, no, Ross Perot cost him the election. In any event, Republicans should probably not do it. He says, probably they shouldn't raise these taxes on the rich, but he says he's okay if they do. So he's like neutral on the subject. Sort of neutral. He doesn't think they should, but it would be okay if they did. The 𝐒𝐭𝐮𝐫𝐢𝐝 letter this morning. So 𝐒𝐭𝐭𝐮𝐫𝐢𝐝 is, I mean, maybe I'm just, maybe I'm the only person who feels this way, but he's very, very consistent. Very consistent. Breaking, Canada's unemployment rate surges to 6.9%, which was above expectations and marking its highest level since 2021 COVID time. Canada's youth employment rate now stands at 13.7%. He said, so those are great stats. Nobody else is reporting those stats. Useful stats, things that I like to see. That's what I love about 𝐒𝐭𝐵𝐼𝐶. And then he says, tariffs are already taking their toll. It's possible that the tariffs are having an impact. I agree. It might be that the tariffs are having an impact, but the tariffs are not the only reason, and it is not good analysis to put that down. He should have said that they have horrible governance, and they've had horrible governance for 6 years, longer than 6 years, I think 12 years. Their economy is in horrible shape after these liberals have been in power for all this time, and they just did it again. And the governance is not going to be better. It's maybe going to be worse. So it's not just the tariffs. This problem has been going on for a very long time. Rasmussen says this morning, he says, Rasmussen is reposting a post from Secrets Bedard, Bedard. Trump approval equals Obama's, and his policies are even more popular. His policies are more popular than he is, according to the Honest pollster. I think he's got room to grow it from the Mark Penn polls. If economy improves, approval could rebound, perhaps sharply, according to the People's Pundit. And then Rasmussen reports that Trump is at 51% today. That's pretty amazing, if you ask me. Now then, this is really important. Don't give up on all the economists. There are some of them out there that actually seem to, most of the time or sometimes, know what they're doing. This particular one seems to have some wisdom. Let's look at it. This is from Barron's. Now, let's talk about the author first. It's Gregory Dacko. He's the chief economist at EY and former chief U.S. economist at Oxford Economics. He goes on to say this. He says, the Federal Reserve should be easing monetary policy. Now, by the way, they have done some quantitative easing in the last 2 weeks, and they're not quantitatively tightening right now. So at least that is a little bit, they're trying to get a little more money moving in the market. That might seem counterintuitive, he says. President Donald Trump's tariffs are raising concerns that inflation might reaccelerate. But a closer look at the economy's underlying dynamics point to a compelling case for easing. Who said that? Somebody said that yesterday. Before tariff anxiety gripped policymakers, the Fed had correctly, albeit belatedly, pivoted toward easing, cutting interest rates by a percentage point in 2024. Growth remained resilient. Labor markets were softening without collapsing, and most importantly, disinflation was well underway. Beneath the noise of volatile monthly prints, the broader trends were clear. Housing inflation was declining, wage growth had decelerated materially, and productivity gains were robust. In fact, March data confirmed that absent tariffs, inflation of core personal consumption expenditures would likely have converged to the Fed's longstanding 2% inflation target by mid-2025. I know why you know why I'm reading this, right? Yet here we are, bracing for a tariff-induced inflation bump. The 145% tariffs on Chinese imports, alongside universal 10% tariffs on most trading partners and a host of sector-specific levies, are significant. EY Parthenon estimates that the tariff shock could lift inflation back into the 3.5 to 4-point range by year end. Wow, let's see. If you take 2% and you add 1.5%, or if you take 2.5% and 1.5%, you get to 3.5 to 4.0%. Now, I think it's only going to be 0.8% because I think he's talking about if all of these went into effect, they're not. And so I think it's only going to go 0.8. So I think it'll be more like 3.0 or 2.8 by the end of the year. He says in this context, but he's agreeing again with my whole analysis. and other analyses that I've been reporting to you. In this context, the term transitory inflation may trigger flashbacks to the Fed's post-COVID-19 misstep. But this time it's different. Even Fed Chair Jerome Powell has acknowledged as much, stating this week that tariff-driven inflation would be transitory, contingent on the speed and magnitude of pass-throughs and the anchoring of inflation expectations, because the people are starting to get it or will start to get it, but also that these will be not all the tariffs will be passed through. Let's unpack that. According to a recent Dallas Fed survey, half of firms expect to pass on all or most of the cost increases. That will likely happen swiftly. Roughly 22% of firms said they plan to raise prices immediately, with over 50% doing so within a month. This dynamic reflects what I previously described as preemptive inflation anxiety, a behavioral phenomenon that amplifies inflation points in the near term. It's also smart business, by the way. It's not just anxiety. If you believe your prices are going up in a month, you want to raise your prices ahead of those price increases because you want to sell the old inventory at the higher prices because you're going to be replacing that inventory with more expensive product. So it makes sense to do that. So if I was going to raise my prices based on incoming tariffs, I would raise them before the product gets there. It's 100% the right thing to do. Most companies don't, but that is the right thing to do. Even so, inflation expectations such as those, now that's assuming you can. That's the other thing. You may not be able to raise the prices on the goods that you already have, and you may not be able to sell through the products that are coming in with the higher tariffs at a higher price. There is not unlimited price flexibility in the marketplace. Speaking to the press after Wednesday's Fed meeting, Powell defended policymakers' unanimous decision to maintain rates. He says the economy is doing fairly well. He says the cost of waiting to see further what happens are fairly low. We think Powell's framework misses several important economic dynamics, said Randy all week. However, unlike the post-COVID cycle, today's macro backdrop includes intensifying fiscal headwinds, a cooling labor market, pressure on businesses to protect margins. That means potential wage compression, headcount reductions, and broader cost containment measures. These are deflationary forces that will partially offset the tariff shock early on, and even more so as tariff-induced demand destruction accelerates. Our baseline forecast, gross domestic product growth flirting with zero in the fourth quarter. I do not believe that. I believe by the fourth quarter, we will be in the golden age because he's not taking into consideration the other two legs of the stool. He says, assuming China tariffs are scaled back to 40% and universal tariffs are around 10% by year end, they have a 45% probability of recession. So you see, even this economist is stupid. I'm sorry, not stupid. I'm just saying, he's not taking into consideration the tax cuts. He's not taking into consideration all the onshoring and how that's going to impact existing manufacturers. He's not taking into consideration all of the infrastructure build out that's going to take place by these people that are now bringing trillions of dollars into the United States to start building factories. And we've talked about all that all week. Another transitory but disinflationary force deserves greater attention: oil. Crude prices are down 20% year to date. Trump is cheering for more price declines. Their company estimates that this will create a 0.3 percentage drag point on inflation. In a world shaped by asymmetric supply shocks, the Fed must treat all transitory dynamics, even those that lower inflation, like the oil price drops. Remember, it's not just about the oil price drops, which are not included in the core. So oil, gas, energy is not included in the core analysis. But that isn't the only thing you look at, because the oil price drops affect every single product that gets sold. Even all services are affected by the oil price drops. Even the family income and the ability to spend money on other things is impacted by oil price drops. So yes, inflation may temporarily rise, but monetary policy is to fulfill its mandate. That's what the Fed is supposed to do, supporting growth without overreacting to short-term price shocks. Then easing must remain an option firmly on the Fed's table. A great risk lies in waiting too long. I do not believe that that's the problem. I'm just thinking it makes sense to lower the rate now when your inflation is so low and that there's no, honest God, no evidence it's going to really go up significantly, except in that transitory way. So there you go. That's what I'm thinking. Let's take a look at where the market is. I'm now reporting this at 8 a.m. Maui, or no, what do we are? Hawaii time. And so Tesla is starting back up again. It's following the market. The market is starting to trend up a little bit, but it is way, way, way outperforming the overall market. It is up 5.38% as of this time. The Dow is down 0.21, but it has been down some more. It's not been down very much today, but it's down more than that, but it's kind of headed back toward the green. The NASDAQ is slightly back into the green after flirting with zero all day long, up 0.03%. S&P, same thing, 0.02%. The rest of the Mag 7 is just as mixed as it can be, but all around the zero area, nobody going dramatically up or down, except Google continuing to be under some kind of under significant pressure because of Apple's decision with regard to how they're going to do search, which caused Google, of course, to have a horrible day yesterday or the day before. We've got the Cathie Woods also mixed, but all headed toward the green. I'd say all the Cathie Woods look like they will finish in the green today, but they're right now, many of them are slightly under the green, but they're moving quickly toward a positive day. All right, let's look at the bonds. So we've got the 10-year down 0.2 of a basis point. And now 0.4. Boy, that just changed right now. So 0.4 of a basis point down, but still at 4.369. Not good. The 2-year is at down 2.1 basis points to 3.874. And the 2-month is sitting way up at 4.3, but down, just went to unchanged just as I was watching it. So 4.309 is where the 2-month is right now, which is very, very, very high in this situation right now. All right, so let's go ahead and look at oil. Oil was up earlier. It is up $1. We're back above $60 at 61, and that's up 1.7% today. I don't think oil is going to stay up. I think it will be back down in the 50s, but that's just me. Natural gas is up 4.82% today, back up to 3.76. Are we expecting a hot summer using a lot of natural gas for air conditioning? Don't know. Gold up 38.70 at 33.44. So kind of in the middle of it. It's been really between 33 and 35 now for a couple of weeks. Silver, similar, has been between 31 and 34. It's sitting at almost 33, up 0.97 today. Copper up 0.9 at 4.64, right in the middle of its range. The dollar going to do well for the week. It's mixed right now. And Bitcoin up another 2,000 at 103,220. You know what? If we get this risk-on situation continuing, which I believe we are going to have, I believe that the S&P is going to go back to all-time high by the end of May. If that happens, I think there's a good chance Bitcoin could be, breaking all-time highs as well as Tesla, as you know, my position on that. Okay, so all that said, everything is just as I said it was a minute ago. So later today, Larry Goldberg at early, probably around 4 o'clock, 7:45 will be, and maybe slightly earlier than that, I'll probably put up just a little bit, will be part 2 of the CERN Basher story. And then part 3 tomorrow, probably first thing in the morning, not sure, but sometime on Saturday. If you like part 1, part two has more pictures, maybe even more graphs and charts. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm sure you'll be if you liked part 1, believe me, part 2 and part 3 are, if anything, better than part 1. So it gets more and more exciting. He's had a very, very interesting life. Tesla continuing up 5.58. We're back over 300 at $300.71. Last night, what did we have? Last night was Thursday night. That wasn't part 1 of CERN Basher? What did we do last night? Yeah, it was last night. No, it was the regular CERN Basher show. So you want to go back and look at that. That's the card that I'll put up. All right, I think that's it from the great state and the great island of Hawaii. It's been great talking to you.